Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley. Dennis Bragg is on assignment. The investigation into racial social media threats and photos that landed 2 students on suspension from Frenchtown High School continues. MTN's Don Fisher has been following the story and joined us now live in the studio with the latest on that. Don.
Jill, Frenchtown school officials were made aware of the threats that showed a high school-aged boy sitting in a vehicle holding a rifle with text including a racial epithet. School officials contacted the school resource officer, who is a deputy with the Missoula County Sheriff's Office. She was to aid the investigation. Upon review, 2 students were suspended, 1 boy and 1 girl. Missoula County Sheriff spokesperson Brenda Bassett says deputies are working closely with the county attorney's office to decide if any charges will be filed. Frenchtown School Superintendent Randy Klein issued the following statement in regards to the investigation, saying, quote, "The district became aware of racially derogatory and threatening social media posts made by 2 Frenchtown students over the weekend. Due to the threatening nature of the posts, the students have been removed from the school while the district investigates the incident. The district will follow the law, its policies, and its procedures when determining appropriate disciplinary action," end quote. And the Montana Human Rights Network has also been made aware of the incident, and the investigation is ongoing. Jill?
All right, Don, thank you. Turning now to weather, we're in for a fantastic fall weekend as winds move out of our region. Here now is Aaron Yost with more on what we can expect. Aaron.
Yeah, this afternoon, a nice taste of what's to come over the next few days across the northern Rockies. Temperatures also on their way up. Obviously today a little cooler behind the passage of yesterday's kind of double whammy sort of cold front scenario, but we have seen decreasing clouds. This was a little bit earlier this afternoon in Hamilton, our First Security Bank ICAM, when we did see a few more clouds in the sky. Pretty much blue sky all over the place. The exception, extreme northern portions there of Flathead County into Glacier National Park, holding on to some light cloud cover. Now we are going to continue to see that decrease overnight tonight, so we are in store for a chilly night, patchy morning fog likely the next few mornings, but tons of afternoon sunshine with those temperatures on their way up. I'll let you know when this all might end coming up in your full forecast.
A beloved coach and staff member at Plains High School died last night in a head-on crash on Highway 93 near Arlee. We're told that from the Plains superintendent that Tom Chisholm has confirmed to KPAX that 34-year-old Kenny Majerison died in the crash. He was the IT director and head coach for the Plains High School wrestling team. The investigation into that crash continues. We have more from up north from Dennis Bragg, who is talking more about the cleanup that is underway near Noxon after a train derailment.
Plains Superintendent Tom Chisholm confirmed to KPAX that Kenny Majerison died in the crash on Wednesday night. He was the IT director and head coach for the Plains Hot Springs High School wrestling team. Chisholm said Majerison worked for the district for about 15 years. He told us that Majerison was a positive influence on our staff. Chisholm said they're allowing staffers and students some time to grieve by offering outside counselors and clergy staff to assist with grief counseling. He said the staff and students have responded exceptionally well to the heartbreaking news. Montana Highway Patrol Sergeant Chan Barry reports Majerison was driving a Subaru northbound on U.S. Highway 93 and for an unknown reason veered into the southbound lanes and struck an oncoming Toyota truck. The man driving the Toyota truck was sent to a hospital with unknown conditions. Barry told MTN News that both drivers were wearing their seatbelt and neither drugs nor alcohol as a factor. Traffic on both sides of Highway 93 was stopped and slowed for nearly 3 hours. The crash is still under investigation. And Chisholm tells me that already the surrounding wrestling programs are diving in and offering condolences and support during this difficult time. In Plains, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
A Missoula man is accused of beating and strangling his wife and then threatening her with a machete. 46-year-old Roy Arrow faces 4 charges, including assault with a weapon and strangulation of a partner or family member. Prosecutors say in court documents that the man's wife reported he beat and strangled her during an argument and then threatened her with that weapon. Deputies responded. They saw injuries on the woman consistent with her story and arrested Arrow. His bail has been set at $50,000. A Missoula attorney has filed a complaint with the Commissioner of Political Practices against Missoula Mayor John Engen for not reporting business expenses. It's the second complaint registered with the Commissioner of Political Practices in the Missoula mayoral race. In the complaint filed yesterday, attorney Quentin Rhodes alleges the John Engen campaign didn't fully report the amount of rent it was paying for its campaign office. Rhodes claims Engen only claimed $300 for a $1,600 office space. But the Engen campaign told KPAX they did file documentation with the commissioner and that they were renting a small space inside a larger office suite and that they follow Montana's campaign finance laws. The commissioner did not have a timetable on when the investigation would be complete. Engen is seeking a fourth term as Missoula mayor. He's being challenged by Lisa Tripke. Late last week, Montana Commissioner of Political Practices Jeffrey Mangan said there was sufficient evidence to suggest the Lisa Tripke for Mayor campaign violated Montana's campaign finance laws. The Centers for Disease Control reports that more than 140 Americans die from opioid addiction every single day. Today, the president is taking steps to try to reduce that number. Mola Lengi has more details from the White House.
President Trump, surrounded by people impacted by the opioid crisis, declared it a national public health emergency.
We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic. We can do it.
The administration's goal is to reduce addiction to prescription pain medication and illicit drugs like heroin and fentanyl.
Given the scale of this epidemic, with millions of Americans already affected, prevention is not enough. We must also help those who are suffering from addiction by expanding access to life-saving treatment.
Today's declaration gives states the ability to shift funds away from other medical issues such as HIV, diabetes, and maternal care to provide more opioid treatments. The president's action stops short of declaring a national emergency to deal with the crisis, something he promised several times to do, even as recently as last week.
It's a very important step. And to get to that step, a lot of work has to be done, and it's time-consuming work. We're going to be doing it next week.
No additional funding will be given to deal with the crisis, but the administration says it is working with Congress to add money to the end-of-the-year budget.
Along with my colleagues, I stand ready to work with him on future proposals to provide necessary tools to protect our communities from this scourge.
The president backed an additional $45 billion to combat the opioid epidemic as part of the GOP plan to repeal and replace Obamacare, but Republican infighting killed the bill. Mola Lengi, CBS News, the White House.
By law, a public health emergency can only last for 90 days, but it can be renewed any number of times as long as it's necessary. Now, Montana Attorney General Tim Fox released a statement today following the president's declaration of this national public health emergency. He said, in part, he applauds the president's decision to direct much-needed resources and focus toward mitigating the devastating effects of opioids. He says he looks forward to working with the federal government and through my office's Aid Montana initiative to address the impact of all abused substances, not just opioids. He went on to say that alcohol abuse and methamphetamine sourced from other countries continues to be the leading driver of substance-related crimes in Montana. He says there's a lot of work ahead for Montana to get the problem under control. He says we can and must find solutions. If you are looking for a safe way to dispose of those unused or expired prescription medications, this is your weekend to do it. The Missoula Police Department and Skaggs School of Pharmacy at UM are hosting a prescription drug take-back Saturday from 10 to 2 at Southgate Mall. Pills only, with or without the bottle, and no questions asked. Wild horses have been part of the American West for hundreds of years. They've been federally protected since 1971. But if President Trump's proposed budget passes, that would change. Tens of thousands of them could face the risk of slaughter. Meg Oliver traveled to the remote mountains of Utah for more on the controversy.
In Beaver County, Utah, wild horses of every color, from charcoal to caramel, charge across the range. A symbol of the great American West, one that's multiplying by 20% a year.
Just in the last 10 years, we've gone from 30,000 to over 70,000. What happened? Within the last 3 years, we pretty much quit gathering.
For decades, the Bureau of Land Management rounded up excess horses and placed them in private ranches and feedlots until they ran out of space.
Now the big fear is that the government will legalize the slaughter of these horses. Under President Trump's proposed budget, the Wild Horse Management Program would lose $10 million in funding. The spending plan would also remove language from a 1971 act that would open the door for wholesale destruction.
They're under attack by our own government.
Wild horse advocate Simone Netherlands has dedicated her life to protecting these majestic Mustangs.
Are there too many wild horses now?
Absolutely not an overpopulation problem of wild horses. What we have is a discrimination problem.
Across 10 states, 26.9 million acres of public land are set aside for wild horses. Meanwhile, there are 155 million acres for livestock. Deep in the desert mountains outside Milford, cattle rancher Mark Winch says the range is under attack, with too many horses devouring the forage.
We're trucking cattle 150 miles, whereas in the past we're able to herd them 10 miles.
Do you think that's the answer, to slaughter these wild horses?
What do you do with your cats and dogs when there's too many in the city? Do you just let them run rampant?
Wild horse advocates want time to try new types of contraception to control the population. But time is running out. A new federal budget could make scenes like this history. Meg Oliver, CBS News, Beaver County, Utah.
As far as the timeline goes, President Trump is pressuring the House to vote on his budget soon. It could happen even as early as today. If it passes, though, Congress still needs to approve the appropriations bill. Safety concerns cloud America's favorite sport. Football keeps looking for ways to make the game safer while still staying popular. A new style of tackling borrowed from rugby tries to limit the amount of hits to the head. Rugby players started using the method because they don't wear helmets. So we ask, would football actually be safer without helmets and pads?
If you aren't having the same kind of padding, you're definitely going to address people differently. There's no doubt about it.
We've always said that maybe go back to the leather helmets, try it out, see what happens. But I think kids are too big and physical anymore in the way we play, that I think teaching the right technique and constantly working and reminding them is the major key.
Coming up tonight on the 10 o'clock news, Derek Berkeley goes on special assignment to find out what football coaches, players, and fans think of a drastic option to make the game safer. Well, still ahead, Erin says we are in for a beautiful but chilly weekend ahead. Her forecast coming up later. We'll also take you up to the Flathead for our Thursday night pep rally in just a few minutes.
This NFL marching band is celebrating its 70th birthday. I'm Weijia Zhang in Owings Mills, Maryland. Come with me to band practice. You won't believe what some of these musicians do for day jobs.